best it can be. So let's see how this first matchup goes. As we kind of breezed over the deck list, but we've seen them all so far today. Anyway, it's going to be the Demon Hunter on the bottom, OTK variant from Seiko, and the Aggro Druid from Frenetic to kick things off.
And again, like I've said it before, my absolute favorite thing to watch, to commentate in the entire world is just the very highest level of Hearthstone. My second favorite thing to watch and commentate on is absolute trash tier dumpster fire Hearthstone, right? Like Falcane vs. Boston, that was one of the most entertaining series that we've had all year. But I think, you know, when it's just otherwise solid Hearthstone with sloppy moments thrown in, that's generally what we don't want to see. So we'll see how things are going to end up, because two players take a deep breath. The Aggro Druid comes out once again for Frenetic. And as I said before in a previous series, this is a scary matchup for the Demon Hunter, and I mean that in the literal sense of the word. Every board that gets generated from the Druid on the other side just fills you with a sense of immediate dread, as you think if you don't clear that, suddenly it's going to get compost landed on it, there's going to be a million cards drawn, and then there's going to be some irreversible board state that you can't deal with anymore. And strangely enough, yeah, that's kind of the reality of Frenetic's hand right now.
Yep. Coin into Battle Guard into whatever from Frenetic. I imagine it's going to be that the Bone Chewer. Yep. And you can see right now, it's all going to start going downhill from there. There is an Immolation Aura, but there's no one extra mana for a hero power. So these minions just simply live. Then there's the Orc Merchant. And maybe something else. Maybe Frenetic just goes additional 2-drop. He can do both if the Battle Guard lives, of course. This just starts to snowball so quickly. The only thing I think that can make Frenetic fall over here is if he goes wide on board and somehow doesn't manage to squeeze in composting, right? I think that's the slip-up that can happen.
Yeah, but somehow I don't think he's going to make that mistake. We're going to have to wait a little bit to find out, because we don't really know what he did with his other 2 mana this turn. But I imagine this board is going to be good. Oh, okay. I was going to say I imagine this board is going to be good enough for the composting to come down on, but it does not look like that is going to be the case here.
Yeah, we will get Spectator fixed, of course, as quickly as we can. There we go. And we are going to get Gordon and Peasant come down. So this is the scary bit. Frenetic not getting composting down, and with Immolation Aura and Fellscream Blast.
Yep, absolutely.
This is a bit of a nightmare for Frenetic.
Immo comes down, 3 minions left remaining. Fellscream Blast hits dead center. Easy for me to say I'm staring at the hand that has double AoE in it, but you can see from Frenetic's reaction how brutal that is. My instinct, I think, hopefully, Caster Vision aside, was that a 3-card composting there was good enough, with just the 0 mana Pack Mule coming down and then the composting landing on that. I think that would have been my initial instinct.
I think I'll be with you, because it feels like something I say at the start of every single Druid game anyway, is just land a composting on something.
The tech! Sorry, Raven! The tech has worked! It's actually relevant! 2 Persistent Peddlers in the deck instead of a Rustrot Viper or a few other things that some people play. Philosophy could arguably be that spot as well. Seiko choosing to play 2 Persistent Peddlers and actually getting the full payout with the double Death Rattle draw. That's it.
Okay, well, Frenetic's recovered with the adorable Infestation draw, so he has now got a 3-minion composting online, but still it's just a little bit later than it could have been. This refill not quite as strong. Benefit here for Frenetic, at least, that he doesn't know about, is if Seiko wants to play this Glide, well, Frenetic's going to get even more cards in hand.
Yeah, outcasted Glide on the left when your opponent's playing an aggro deck dumping cards against you is the biggest downside of the card. Even if you top deck it on the right, you can quite often, and you can see it happen with this exact hand, just use a tradable to swap a card from mid-hand to the right to the point where Glide doesn't outcast, but when it's on the far left like this, you're in real trouble.
I grow impatient.
I'll go for Fellscream, number 2.
That is double Fellscream down already.
And this is the issue, right? Like, we can see the I-Beam. Of course, Seiko playing for board at this point is ahead, but it only takes another turn. Like, the fact that Frenetic got to draw 3 cards from those minions dying means that he gets to go wide again, and now he has Oracle of Elune and 4 1-drops on turn 5.
And he's seen 3 AoEs in the first 5 turns from Seiko as well at this point. There is a single remaining Immolation Aura in the deck that can deal with wide boards. Yes, Seiko currently has a decent amount of board control himself, like 4-1 into a 2-4 straight up, and he has the perfect hero power with the Demon Hunter hero power to be able to pick some of this apart. But this board state is going to continue to snowball and spiral for as long as there isn't that final AoE piece for Seiko.
Most importantly, is this just Il'gynoth hero power? I can
no.
You're getting tempted. Come on, son.
I'm not. I'm getting less and less tempted the more I look at it.
Come on.
So what would you do? 4-1 into 2-4, 4-3 value trades a 2-1, then you hero power a 2-1?
Yep.
Oh my goodness, he actually does
me
it.
And Seiko. Okay. Seiko, fantastic Hearthstone player. Absolute same wavelength as me. Makes sense.
That's twice in a few hours that someone's tried to make that claim. Lorinda was saying earlier that he's been saying play 2 persistent peddlers since Demon Hunter first appeared. I think if we're going to model our deck building in particular after Seiko, we might just get ourselves in trouble. Just saying. Oh! Get out! Tempo Il'gynoth!
Seiko has the Il'gynoth. He'll be okay. You'll believe. See, now he's got another peddler. They call him 2 Peddler Lorinda.
That's what they call Seiko. They've been calling him that for years.
They've been calling him that for years. Moag I-Beam is available.
Yeah, very true. Just quickly checking how much of this board that clears up. Yep, not enough.
I mean, he won't want to kill 2 of the minions, right? Because they'll have the Grey buff.
Yes, but as soon as he does not do that, his Il'gynoth is dead and then the game's over. So, next idea.
Fine.
Oh, okay. If it would just be fine, then what are we worried about?
Nothing great, but he can play them both. There's what, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14 power on board, 15 with hero power.
Yeah. He's dead, though. I think the only viable route to victory there would be, like, finding enough damage with lifesteal spells that Frenetic couldn't, like, double trade into Il'gynoth without dying, but I'm not even sure that was possible to do because the Fel Screams were already used previously, right? So I don't think there was any real way out there for Seiko.
Not out yet.
I mean, he is. He's dead. It might not look like it, but he's dead.
Okay, what happens if...
Yep. There needs to be an end to that sentence, Raven. You can't just stop there.
Deck tracker's broken. Can't work without deck tracker.
Ah, I see.
Is there any draw that you can get that clears this board, right? Depending on where these trades go, of course.
Why? I mean, a fight. Like, whatever. This wins too, but, like, come on. Just kill the Il'gynoth and win the game. What are you doing?
Does it win?
Good old 3 series Raven is coming back into play now. We're actually having a long day. Love to see it.
He still has a Immolation Aura, right?
He has 1 Immolation Aura remaining. Yeah, it's the last AoE effect.
So if he drew spell damage plus Immo,
Yeah.
not strictly dead, right?
No, well, I mean, that's kind of part of the risk of leaving the Il'gynoth alive, right? It's why I kind of object to this. It's like, I feel like this is a tiny, tiny percentage of risk that you're introducing into the game, whereas killing the Il'gynoth just removes all doubt.
Okay, so he can now draw and play MO if he uses Spectral.
Mm-hmm.
And he will be able to do it in such a way that makes Greybow do nothing, right? If he clears it all.
Depending on sequencing of how things die and how they were played, yes, I think so. But I think it is possible with the setup that he has.
I see.
Those are not it, though. Double Jump is the only card he can draw without spending any mana.
Okay, so
He's
burn.
not going to draw an Immolation
trade.
Aura.
Yeah. He's just trading down as much as he can. This does, in a weird roundabout way, buy him time, right? Because those Greybow Death Rattles obviously aren't on board right now, so he does only have 3 damage, 4 with Hero Power.
Yes. Correct.
Now he does have Park Panther trade, but again, weird point. Does he want to actually trade with his 2 other minions? Surely not, because then it would deal a ton of damage to himself.
Yeah, it's a problem, right? Because it's specifically Il'gynoth. Otherwise, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
Because he would generate just so much extra damage on board, he'd be setting up lethal for the following turn.
But Park
But as it stands, probably can't afford to do it.
Park Panther was actually super clutch.
It was, yeah. Yeah. I really don't like the decision to leave Il'gynoth alive on the previous turn. I think it was a super unnecessary risk.
Gonna cut it. This Twatch post, bit of a pain here for Seiko. Can't even glide for something extreme. Spectral, double jump, all these options are rough. He can swing into it first with his weapon, which I guess he just has to at this point.
Yeah, I mean, problem also is that he's down to Fell Scream, 2 I-Beam, 2 Illidari studies, so how does he even, like, stabilize from this position, right?
Yeah, it's not going to quite get it. He would need to exactly go draw whatever, but get Magtheridon and the clear, right? To be able to try and get this done in any way, shape, or form. But it would be too difficult with mana cost. He needed exactly the Immolation Aura with spell damage, and it's just too expensive. Not enough ways to draw cards for cheap enough. The Magtheridon's already 5 mana. There's the Immolation Aura, but I don't think it cuts it.
I bet you can do this.
Yeah, this doesn't work, right? Because the second swing will keep one of them alive.
Yeah, he'll kill one, but he'll only deal 3 damage to the second one, which means Frenetic will go 1-0 up. Another very, very scrappy game there where, you know, I think Frenetic made a decision, like, to defend his point of view, even though I don't necessarily agree with it. I think the line he took was saying, okay, there's a small chance that even if I kill his Il'gynoth, I haven't done enough damage to his face, and he gets to go like Magtheridon clear my board, right? And then have a 12-12, and I lose to the 12-12. I think that's what Frenetic is playing around in that position. I personally don't think that's a scarier loss condition when you have like multiple layers of Greybows and whatever else on your board to be worrying about in various positions, compared to just, you know, getting your board cleared, that your opponent still has an Il'gynoth. Kind of the exact situation we saw, right, where it was really close to being very awkward without a Park Panther draw from the opponent to deal with that Il'gynoth. Yeah, this clutch draw here. So I think it was a difficult game to navigate, and I think maybe that decision is closer than I'm making it sound. But to me, it opened up a little bit of risk overall for Frenetic that he didn't have to play into.
Yeah, it was a lot trickier than it initially looked, I think, especially with the opening Frenetic had, and also the response that Seiko had actually early on, missing that compost in there for Frenetic. But let's dive into game number 2. It's going to be this Elemental Aggro Shaman here from Frenetic. Again, reminder, if you didn't catch our match earlier on today, he isn't running the Doomhammer list, he's running the Whack-A-Null and the Auction House Gavel in there, but what he did do was pretty aggressively curve out in his Shaman game against Druid. He was playing Yarla earlier on, and Yarla just didn't get to play Hearthstone because he was playing Druid and Frenetic was playing Shaman.
Yes, Yala had a one-off spike where he hit Moarg Forge Fiend, and it looked for about 3.5 seconds like that might be good enough to win the game. And then Frenetic had the perfect response by not only drawing an elemental to activate a Lily Pad Lurker for the following turn, but also hitting a Taunt Totem, which meant the Moarg Forge Fiend actually was unable to do anything for a turn because it just had to crunch into the 0-2.
And although not as bad, of course, as the Druid matchup, where do you rate Demon Hunter here, Sortle? It's a lot of minion aggression, a lot of higher health pools than I would say normal for an aggro deck from the Shaman as well. Does that make a big impact against Demon Hunter?
It does make a big impact, yeah. I think there's a lot of very mid-rangey boards that can come down. I think a decent comparison for this matchup, I would say, would be the Rush Warrior matchup from the previous metagame. Right. They just have the ability to make lots of mid-rangey stuff over and over again. Demon Hunter has kind of limited ways to deal with that. But also, much like the Rush Warrior matchup, to not quite the same degree, you can be very brave with your health total in this matchup in particular, because as you can see in Frenetic's hand, this is Whack-A-Null Hammer Auctioneer's Gavel version of the deck, not the Doomhammer version of the deck. So the damage comes a little bit slower overall. It's generally only 3 to 6 damage can get added from the hand at any one time, unless they have an extremely abnormal level of damage in their hands. So you can afford to be quite brave, quite greedy with your removal. I think that's generally what it takes in the matchup to be victorious as the Demon Hunter.
Yeah, key things to look out for in the form of burst is double Lightning Bolt is in the list. There's the Worms as well, which deal 3 from hand. Serpentine Portals in this list as well. And then, of course, the 2 Fire Elementals and Alakir. So there are some ways that some nice burst damage can come out, but generally speaking, yes, not a high burst deck. Especially compared to Doomhammer.
Frenetic skipped the Wailing Vapor on turn 1, which might look a little bit weird, but it is now allowing him to set up for this Elemental Curve into Arid Stormer, giving the Arid Stormer Wind Fury, representing a ton of damage. All he really misses there is 1 damage from the Wailing Vapor, unless he was going to draw exactly a 2-drop on turn 2, which is not unlikely. There's 4 of them in the deck, right, that you can pick up, but I think outside of that, the other 22 times or whatever was the card count at that point, it's better to play the curve the way he did.
Only 2 of them, technically, unless you count in the 1-drops as well.
Oh, sorry, does he not play the Generating Elemental?
No, just Cage Man.
My bad. Okay. Alright, okay, then much better to do it the way he did them.
Yep, and put it very simply, the 1 damage you miss, you probably make up for with the Arid Stormer having Wind Fury, right? So,
right.
Nice and simple there. Seiko is going to be able to clean this up, though. With a couple of preemptive hits with the hero power. Shake of the head from Frenetic. He is not enjoying this early AoE that Seiko seems to be having time and time again.
Yeah, I think it still worked out pretty well for him in the previous game, right? Like, if you draw all of the AoE early, then you have to rely on all the AoE early because that's what you have in your hand, and then you don't have the AoE late, right? Like, it's not necessarily a good thing in comparison to just drawing stronger options.
Yeah, I think it was fine. I think it's more like, oh, he had the AoE early last game, and he's got it early this game. You know, just that kind of thought pattern, right? Where you're like, oh, wow, is Seiko going to just have the AoE every time now? Though tough turn, right? Acrobatics just doesn't really achieve much. Glide center hand. I'm not even sure if Seiko's overly bothered about trying to glide Frenetic, so this play doesn't surprise me too much. With his hand not really doing much else, why not just get a new one?
A new hand that also does absolutely nothing.
I don't know. This Peddler, I can see him just playing it, not this turn.
True.
It's too expensive, but he does run the second one, and that's kind of difficult to clean up. A 4-3 that death rattles into a 4-3.
Yep.
And Thingy death, like...
We see it with Dr. Demon Hunter all the time, right? Where they just have way too many layers of sticky death rattles to be able to clear most of the time.
Right.
It's kind of that effect.
Here, though... The damage is starting to stack up. 5 is also kind of awkward to deal with as well.
Yep, no Chaos Leech being played in this version of Demon Hunter. Does have the Illidari Studies to go fishing for it, but as it stands, like, you probably just have to say, yep, pull the trigger. AoE used on a single minion there.
And this is Whack-A-Null, isn't it? Oh, nice. The Fire Elemental into the Whack-a-Null swing to clean up the second one if it's there.
Look like you love a good deal.
Frenetic's just saying, again, clear this board now.
And like, just talking about the second peddler, I suppose, like, is what happened there good? Like, did a good thing just happen? Because to me, like, that's just 2 card draw cards that you don't have in your deck anymore that you've played and they've achieved nothing.
I think with his lack of AoE, potentially it's a good thing because he just needed not to get smashed in the face. But I also just think that it had to be Whack-a-Null and a way to kill the first or the second one. You know, the second one, whichever way you want to look at it, which I think is a reasonable ask. It would require...
No. But what I'm saying, right, is say that he just hit the first one with the weapon, played a few minions, and then the 4/3 traded 1 for 1 with some other minion that he played, right? Like, I still ask the same question. Did a good thing happen? Like, you just have thinned your deck of a bunch of card draw at that point. It just seems a little bit strange.
Frenetic just continuing on with the pressure. Although we've seen some more brave Kurtrus plays already this weekend, I'm not sure this is one of them.
Yeah, I think that one comes past brave by quite some significant distance. This is a very nice turn, though, with the Fellscreen Blast and the I-Beam. Once again, though, Seiko finds himself in that spot where he basically just has no removal left at this point. That's 2 I-Beams, 2 Immos, and in this case, 1 Fellscreen Blast used, so kind of the reverse of the previous game. He has 1 major removal piece available. It's the Fellscreen Blast that he will probably need to use to kill his opponent at this point.
It's also important to note that the Frenetic's version of this list is way less one-dimensional. As you can see now, he's of course running the Primal Dungeoneer, one of which you can see on boards for card draw. He has Fireheart in the hand as well, which is tons of value too. So he isn't all in, right? Even with the double Serpent Shrine and Lightning Ball, he has ways to continue to push into late game. It's not like, oh, Seiko reset his health, I guess Frenetic loses, right? He's got plenty more juice where that came from.
Yikes! It's so rare that you play Kurtrus, play a 3-mana Acrobatics, hit 0/0 and think, well, that was a terrible draw, because that Fellscreen Blast is the last remaining card in the deck that Seiko has to kill his opponent with.
And also, let's remember, his Tuskpacer is just a 1/1 weapon.
Yes, correct.
Will not draw the tradable. He has played them both. So have a quick check-in with what's left in Seiko's deck to see if he can ever get away with this. The 2 Moarg, the 2 Studies, still a guild trader. So technically, Seiko does have an OTK in the deck, but can he afford to just leave the minions up? He decides no.
Yeah, and I think if we want to get some serious coping involved, he does still technically have an OTK available, right? Because with 2 Studies, he can still make some silly things happen with Philosophy and an I-Beam, something ridiculous like that. But it's certainly got a whole lot more difficult for him, especially when your opponent gains the ability to tempo an Alakir alongside a 4/4 here. No removal left in the deck, remember. So I think Frenetic is very confident this Alakir is going to have to tank the 7/7. But that Chaos Leech is insane! You just go now? Tempo push?
Oh, leech the Alakir and then push 7?
Well, like, leech the Alakir with the Il'gynoth.
With Il'gynoth,
and
yeah,
the Moarg.
of course, yeah. So he'll push 17, 18 with the weapon.
I grow impatient.
I've heard a worse plan, Sol.
Opponent at 6. That leaves 2 minions on board that if they get to connect face, win the game.
And that Frenetic outside of Lilypad can't really even interact with Il'gynoth.
Right.
Without dying.
Right.
Seiko on 20 health with 4 health on board. 4 attack on board on the other side. I'm with you. And I'm with Seiko here. I think this is a really good decision. The Chaos Leech might well have just took him out of this situation because it was looking grim.
It was looking very grim indeed.
Oh,
Oh.
he wants to clear the board instead.
So this leaves him in a spot where his opponent's at 13 after the weapon swing, which is not a consistent lethal setup.
Fireheart, though, can dig people out of even the worst situations, especially when there's a Moarg on board.
Storm Strike,
Jesus.
that's 6.
Landslide.
Landslide! Oh, the
million.
landslide's so disgusting!
Lightning bolt first. Oh, insane.
Primordial Studies just to cycle it, yeah, picks up a guild
Charge
trader, finds
call?
another
Oh, no.
options.
Might not be the best.
Wrong deck. I don't know, probably just either of the other two at this point. I had to hear an argument for Wind Fury there, honestly, just to be able to push a little bit of extra damage a bit quicker. But I think if anything, you probably just have to plan for Magtheridon once again at this point, right? Some magical way that Magtheridon generates a 12-12, even though I'm not sure even that exists at this point.
Yeah, just as studies that I think Frenetic's afraid of, right?
Yep.
Because the studies would be needed to get, I don't even know what, like you said, to prop the Magtheridon.
Yeah, I don't like studies into Kurtrus kills 2 of the 1-3s,
And then, like,
but then what kills the other one? I have no
Hero
idea.
power with the Tusk Piercer and then hero power again.
Over
like,
2 turns and you're still alive somehow. Like, yeah, Seiko's dead. This game is over.
Another happy guildie.
Guild trader. No, okay.
it's enough power, enough pressure.
Barely
Go gavel.
Yeah, get the gavel in there as well. He just needed another source of 3 damage to be able to end the game, which is what he was fishing for there.
Does have it as well, right?
Other lightning bolt.
Lightning bolt.
Nice.
Serpent Shrines, correct.
Yeah, I think Serpent Shrine would have been too expensive to fit in alongside the Fire Rally and the weapon, so probably did not have those as an out, but still was worth taking the trade first, the cycle first, to be able to find those outs.
Doesn't look good enough to me. 3 damage, 4 damage with hero power, 10 health for Frenetic. I think that doesn't add up, Sottle. Frenetic goes up to a 2-0 lead versus Seiko. Now he only has his Warlock to take a win with, but this is where the series could start evening up, at least for me, Sottle, where Warlock is the question mark, I think, for this lineup from Frenetic. You can see what everything else does, right? Aggro Druid, aggro Elemental Shaman, the Paladin, kind of aggro, kind of not, depending on the draw, I suppose, which is where the weakness is for that. The Paladin was banned, which means this Warlock, which is Handlock for Frenetic, is the last deck he has to get a win with.
I do think this was the really, really interesting turn, right? Because one of the reasons why I like pushing max damage, right? You'd be pushing 7 extra, essentially, by allowing the 7-4 to go face, is that even if the worst happens, right? Like, say this Fireheart turn still happens the exact same way and your board gets cleared up. Yes, there's potentially a 4-4 still on the board that's still kind of racing you down, but I think you're introducing more outs in that world as well, because you get your opponent so low that maybe like the other studies into a Gunnar Glavesmith, for example, is just lethal at that point with the 3 extra damage. So I personally favored that way of going about it. The reality is that he went for a good push that had some outs, and then Fireheart on the other side just absolutely shut it down. And the reality is that now Frenetic goes 2-0 up, and the particularly brutal reality is that Seiko is perhaps watching his World Championship prospects melt away for another year here.
Also some level of frustration as well. It's like, you're already going to Worlds. Like, that kind of approach as well. He is going to be losing to Frenetic.
This is a whole mood. Like, this would absolutely be me if I was in that position. Just ruining other people's day just for the pure fun of it. Like, that is a whole mood.
But, Seiko does have a chance, right? Like, this Warlock, we've seen it fall. It's not like it's not like we're looking at another aggro Druid from Frenetic against Seiko's Druid or something like that, right? Which is a really tough matchup. Like, this Warlock is very beatable from the deck Seiko has left. So let's see what he can do. He's going to start that journey with his Demon Hunter, though. Frenetic, to no one's surprise, going to start quests, probably going to look at a few life taps as well, and try and work out when he wants, or when or if he wants to drop this Cult Neophyte down in the early game.
Yeah, we'll start to see based on the hand that he gets. Okay, interesting. He did pick up a 3-drop, did still choose to go with the tap, has now found the Anetheron, so he might try and greed his way through to a full hand. That's an awkward turn to be drawing Glide from Seiko, it has to be said, because that's going to take a few turns to work its way over to the left-hand side. And if it is going to work its way over to the left-hand side, it's at the cost of a Arcanist and an Immolation Aura, which is a very valuable 2-card clear combo for this matchup. Yeah, I was a little bit curious from Frenetic's side about the 2 into 3 curve since he drew it. You know, have seen people do that in this matchup, being particularly afraid. Yeah, all right, halfway houses. He is just playing his 3-drop on 3 instead of backfire or tap. I do like this.
I do always
Playing
find
around Coin Glide this turn.
I do always find it tricky as well, because on one hand, yeah, playing minions, fantastic. On the other hand, even though you're worried about Glide, you do want to life tap as Warlock. Like, that's how you progress your own game plan. So it's a very difficult thing to balance, and I think no one's truly just decided this is how you do it. You know what I mean? I think it's very difficult on a game-by-game basis to just say this is always the correct way.
I think you'll find Montel Jordan worked that out quite a long time ago, Raven.
There's 2 references like that we've gone for today.
But yeah, it's the same thing as like the Rogue matchup, right? Where, you know, you could say, yes, at the same, you want to play around Glide, but at the same time, Rogue really wants to get to the bottom of the deck so they can lethal you with the Garrote. The idea is that, you know, on average, you still get down there quicker by playing around Glide and doing these weird things that throw away cards instead of drawing cards. It's hard to get your head around, but over time, more and more players are coming around to the idea that just playing deliberately inefficiently actually works out more efficient in the long run.
What a world we live in.
Yep.
Seiko does not really look impressed with the way this game's going. It's definitely an odd thing to look at. It's like, my handlock opponent has played a 3-2 and a 3-3 and I'm annoyed.
And I'm just losing to
Yeah, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. It's so weird to watch, but it is correct.
Yep.
I grow impatient.
Again, more and more players starting to worship at the altar of Alan. These neophytes, or this neophyte, are being... Oh!
The big play.
Every game! He's just a play the peddler gamer. But still, too much mana in order to get that Glide into outcast position, right? Which means particularly powerful things are possible over the next few turns for Frenetic. This is already a lot of pressure being represented. We might just see Seiko pull the trigger on the clear. It's not the most impressive board to clear with Immolation Aura and Arcanist, although, to be fair, there's kind of 2 types of boards in this matchup. There's 3 types of boards. There's random zooey, scrubby things like this. There's the 8/8s, and then there's the 6/6 taunts. Those are kind of the 3 types of relevant boards, right? The Immolation Aura with Arcanist is perfectly lined up against the 6/6 taunts board. That's the one that you want to hit it with. As soon as a giant comes into play, it gets too big, though, and then you have a problem. So maybe this kind of medium-sized board is just fine to be using an Immolation Aura on, to be setting up that Glide.
What if he just plays Magtheridon?
You might be right. It's very much the kind of situation, the weird board tension dynamics that Seiko and Yala have been creating for quite some time.
Because then he has options of clearing whenever he wants. This board is still currently now only 6 power, facing down a 4-3.
I literally, like, he played it at the end of the last turn, and I was like, okay, remember that's going to happen. And then immediately
still got you.
As soon as it trade, that never happens.
I was more waiting for it to be drawn, because Frenetic obviously didn't trade into the first one.
Right.
And be like, oh, you have to spend mana on trading this now just to make sure it comes back?
9 showing. 8 cards in hand, which means backfire down to 7, up to 10, playing a Netheron. But we're in that catch-22 scenario again, right? As to do we want to be adding a significant amount of damage to this board? Last time, Frenetic was in this spot against Yala, and I think he understood the balance perfectly. And yet again, I think, yes, absolutely. Make your opponent do it. Add the Anetheron to the pot. Probably hold on to the null, I would imagine. But again, the questions glide, right? Like, this isn't even a catch-22, it's a catch-33, because if you're going to play around Magtheridon, not only are you not generating a board, which is less pressure, but you're also holding cards in your hand and life tapping, which is worse to glide. Like, it's such an awkward spot to play around.
This is why I'd look at Tour Guide and then, say, Mortal Coil, for example, because even though you are drawing more cards, you're also using more cards, right? You're getting cards just out of the actual 30-card deck. So I think I like this overall, because even if if Glide comes down, you've spent 2 cards that you ain't getting back, right? So it still helps in some respect.
Missed an attack on the far right, I think. 1 damage short of where it should have been. Pretty sure one of those attacks did not go through in the end, but just the 1 damage did not miss any of the big ones.
Maybe you wanted him at lucky 13.
Yeah, maybe he did.
I grow impatient.
And again, this is the... It's tough to say, like, oh, well, play the Anetheron, and yeah, if he clears it, good, you know, fine. But there's a 12-12. But the benefit here is if Seiko clears it, he's spending mana on doing so, right? And that just naturally reduces down the speed of his overall game plan. And Frenetic on Warlock is, I think, got a reasonable chance halfway through his deck to be able to not worry about the Magtheridon itself. I think that's fair.
Hero power left, fell screen right.
You're going to chuck in the Arcanist as well? Okay.
Oh, he does throw the Arcanist.
Wants the extra heal.
Pick up the healing, sure. Stabilizes from 12 to 21, means that he might be able to ignore the next board that comes down. Seems fairly reasonable. Also just gets rid of the Arcanist, right, which is something that we've been talking about for a couple of turns. Frees up that glide on the left-hand side now.
More bones to gnaw on.
5, 7, 9, 11 currently, from what I can see.
Well, you could do it with Tamsin, right?
He can do it with Tamsin.
With double touch or quad touch.
He's going to backfire and look for other options.
Oh, just play double taunt.
Yeah. Can find Shadow Blast this way as well, right?
Yeah, and this is a really, I mean, it's worked out well because of Double Giant, of course, I understand. But this is a really good way to punish Magtheridon because AoE is normally required to pop it. So you just use your Arcanist in AoE. Here's a board that's actually a threat. You know, like it's the perfect sort of 1-2 punch against this kind of Magtheridon play.
Frenetic considering here whether to make the health totals symmetrical or play another taunt here, right? Or do none of the above. He goes with none of the above in the end. Like, he could have touched the Magtheridon again. So if there's any weird world where Seiko's doing exactly 8, which is an extremely bizarre breakpoint for AoE to do, but nonetheless, at least then the Magtheridon would also be dying. In the end, chooses to hold on to as many cards as possible, which he might end up being punished for here because of the glide finally weaseling its way into that outcast position. But most importantly, there needs to be an answer to the board, and if there is not an answer to the board, you can take all Frenetic's cards. He doesn't need them. He just needs one, and it's not even in his hand to start with.
Best thing is as well, even with the trade, it's just flat lethal, right? Without any heals, of course.
Yes, correct. 8+8+5 for 21.
Oh, guild trader. Can he even play that? Does he actually just like trade Fell Screen Blast? I guess he has Eye Beam now to make that up, so he can actually kill the Null as well.
Well, he'd kill an 8/8, right?
Oh, sorry, there's a Moag. Apologies.
Yeah.
Apologies.
You can I-beam the 6/6 taunt and just smack through.
Completely right. I'm an idiot. I apologize for that one.
Potions, blasts, VOE, I got it all.
He's going maximum power. Taking the 3 trades. He is dead to BGBM this way, but currently not in hand.
There's some great raised dead targets, though, for Frenetic now. Could he even trade a Giant first if he was really thinking about it?
There are also some real bad raised dead targets.
You got me on that. Can't argue. Pap will get him into back down to 10 cards again, which sounds weird, but Glide makes weird things happen.
Oh!
That's a pickup. Oh, is he in a position now to just trade everything? Like double bristleback, double trade?
Yeah, it's still a little bit awkward in terms of being aggressive, right? Because basically everything on the board is still a must-kill target.
Yeah.
However, again, with this just seems to have been every game for Seiko so far. Double Fellscreen Blast has been used already, which means a defensive game plan actually has increased chances of working for Frenetic if he wants to go for that.
And that's the thing, right? Like, what else does Seiko realistically have left at this point? He's gonna go.
Oh, he's gonna Rend, Bristle, push 8. Okay, this is a good compromise. This is a nice middle ground I like. Does kill everything, still keeps a big giant on board, still gets a good amount of healing in. I like this.
Okay, yeah, you know, I can get behind this. And the big kicker really as well, this point in the game, and Kurtrus is not down.
No.
Which really reduces Seiko's big turn potentials. And yet again, just give a quick glance while Seiko's looking at what he's got in his hand, at what Frenetic's got left in his deck. There is most importantly still the Battleground Battlemaster in there. Still a Scavenger as well.
Two from 8 on final step of quest as well, which means he's actually in with a shot of completing the quest before the Demon Hunter even in this game, which is absolutely ridiculous. Because even now, like, yes, card can be drawn, but card costs mana, and then the quest reward is not coming down this turn.
Subtle explaining Hearthstone to a baby.
Absolutely. Pig go oink, cow go moo, card cost mana.
Even gonna play an I-Beam here. Kind of weird, right? Like, you'd think, oh, well, I-Beam maybe can get the job done later or help get the job done later, but also the more you leave up a bristleback, the harder that job becomes because they're healing every turn, so I think I do like using an I-Beam there.
Whoa! Wait, really?
He's not playing a Netheron Scavenger?
I was going to say, is this a thing you want to spend 1 mana on this turn? Like, is he scared of just dying because he's at 11? I guess that's something to think about. Like, maybe he wanted a target just to shoot with a bristleback that turn.
Oh, maybe he
gain some
considered
health.
it, yeah. Wait a minute. Surely he needs one more turn, right?
Yeah, at least.
Nothing he can get there. I said it once and I'll say it again. I've seen my fair share of Brave Kurtrus, but we're here again.
Demons?
And that's 6 health on a Netheron. It becomes important so often.
Yep.
Whether it's living a Soul Rend, there's the fact that I-Beam Immolation Aura does not kill it. So big. Seiko is going to go for this though.
The acrobatics here, looking for Arcanist.
Does he know?
No, he does go acrobatics. He's going to go glide. Okay, sure.
Well, that's Battleground Battlemaster out the window for Frenetic, at least for this turn, unless he can get it back.
He definitely got the Immolation Aura back. Moarg is not currently good enough. Guild Trader just slightly too expensive. He needed the Arcanist plus Immo combination.
There's the 70th I-Beam I think we've seen so far.
Yeah, which is playable alongside Moarg Immo.
Oh,
Like, technically that does things. Alright, sure. But again, it's just another resource. A Moarg down, an I-Beam down, 1 I-Beam left, remember, shuffled into the deck. The resources with which Seiko has to kill Frenetic are starting to become very limited.
Ooh.
And now, Blightborn Tamsin has entered play.
Yeah, good pick up
Somewhere.
there as well with the Drain Soul.
Not too far away, Ron Swanson feels a disturbance in the Force and is running for his life because Tammy 2 has appeared. Wait a minute. I see 2 6 health taunts. But there's no card draw! The only card draw is the Guild Trader, and the Guild Trader is required to trade through to blast through
But
the
can
6/6s.
Can he guild trade into acrobatics to get the guild trader back?
Yes. Yes, he
Got to be the
can.
plan, right?
But then what? He still needs more damage at that point, right? Like, he would need to also draw the Il'gynoth and also draw the I-Beam. Like, that doesn't work, does it?
I'm a first step kind of guy, so don't ask me for steps 2 and 3. I've got the
Okay.
initial idea and that's it.
No. Okay, so you trade the Guild Trader back into the deck. Press that button again. You trade the Guild Trader back into the deck. You get Acrobatics. You play the Acrobatics. The Guild Trader now costs 0. You draw it alongside the Tusk Piercer. Oh, it nearly worked! Okay, so if he'd have drawn Tusk Piercer and Guild Trader there, he just plays those 2 cards. Those Acrobatic procs hit the other 2 cards, and he draws Il'gynoth and I-Beam.
Yep.
Which would then clear out the board. I don't think it would be lethal, but it would at least help him clear out the board. His opponent would be at like 2, and he'd have a massive board on the other side as well.
Oh. Il'gynoth and a Dream.
Yeah.
And there's just... Well, there is only Soul Rend right now.
There is only Soul Rend right now.
Wait, did Frenetic draw something else? Because that Soul Rend looks snapped. Yes, he did. Oh, the snap Soul Rend. With the bristleback. And with the heal and the minion pressure. Weapon's got hero power and a team.
Destroys the weapon! The final soul rubbed in the wound. Brutal one for Seiko to take. Frenetic, that unassuming, innocent little man, is the spoiler. He is the ultimate troll in playoffs so far this weekend, cutting down everyone else's chances of going to the World Championship, so he himself can make a road back to the top 4, and that means everyone else's chances in that top 4, their chances of going to Worlds have just increased massively.
Yeah, and it was honestly, it felt like a tough series for Seiko, and I'm not saying that against him. I'm saying that everything felt like it lined up in a pretty rough way. It felt like he was always trying to dig himself out of tough situations. There were some choices to be made, obviously, throughout that series, but it always felt Frenetic just had his foot on the gas like every single game, and it was really the onus was on Seiko to defend, and that just didn't look like it lined up too well at all. So rough match, rough single game for Seiko, but I do think he has had a fantastic season, and I'm expecting great things from him next time around as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Seiko is a player that's a pleasure to watch. I do enjoy watching Seiko because I think, fundamentally I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. Like the decks he likes, the way he builds the decks, sometimes a strategic top-down approaches to matchups. But as I watch him, I feel like I kind of see the justification behind his way of thinking a lot of the time, and it kind of helps me learn and attack some of my own biases and maybe become a better Hearthstone player myself, just because, Seiko is kind of my exact opposite when it comes to stylistic ways of approaching the game. I think he's a fantastic player, a phenomenal member of our Grandmasters roster, and I think, a well-deserved run, pretty deep in playoffs there in the end, but it is going to be Yarla and Frenetic making their way out of the group. And remember, that now means that those 2 players who got out of Group B are split on opposite sides of the bracket, which means now a Yarla Frenetic final is a possibility, at which point Yarla goes to Worlds, because Frenetic is already booked in from Season 1.
Yeah, huge deal.